So I'm racing along on my body work, and I think I've said this before. I had this kind of nagging feeling I was forgetting something, and it had finally occurred to me what I was forgetting. And you would have thought it would have hit me a lot earlier working on these doors as much as I have been. But from get-go, I designed out this pocket that goes on this door, and it's going to be a fiberglass pocket. It's not going to be a fabric unit. It's going to have some shape to it, and parts of it are going to be painted body color. So it has to be done in advance of the body work, basically. So when I'm in the paint booth, when I'm in the painting stage, I'm painting everything at once. I'm not having to go back and kind of do anything after I've mixed up paint and so forth. So this is what I'm making. This is just the form, but it's going to sit something like this, and a little wider at the front, a little narrower at the back. But this will end up being the part that I pull the fiberglass part from. This is just in rough shape, it'll be a little different than what you've seen me in the past. I'm actually not making a fiberglass a negative here where I'm going to pull a part from that ends up being the finished unit. Instead, I'm actually draping the fiberglass over this and kind of going in the opposite direction. You'll see all that kind of unfold shortly. But so here, follow me along while I make the part I almost forgot to make. So I missed recording me making this top little piece of trim that goes along the very top edge of this form. It's actually a really critical part of this. It's what creates that pocket for the carpet to sit into. It's just recessed into that section. That's for two reasons. One is it'll protect the top edge of that carpet. It'll also create a far more finished look in the end. So after I finish the waxing part of this, the next step is to stretch this four-way stretch fabric into place. And I'm holding it temporarily with staples. And this fabric's only purpose is really giving me some kind of a starting point or a way to hold the fiberglass in place until it cures. There's really no structure here. It's just kind of a cheat, basically. It means that I don't have to build this connecting part between the top and the bottom of the form. The fabric takes on that role. And then, after everything's cured, the idea is that I'll basically kind of flex and open this up enough to pull the wooden part back out, leaving me just the fiberglass shell. So this step's a pretty critical part as well. What you're seeing me do here is putting in a temporary block that presses the fiberglass into that recess that I created with that top piece of that wooden trim that I put along the top edge. This is important because without that, the fiberglass just kind of bridges this opening. Again, I need this. I need kind of a hard edge there to accept the edge of the carpet. Without that, it would be this very soft kind of nebulous radius that wouldn't register as a clean transition. It would also involve just a lot more sanding and filling work. So this is kind of, again, another cheat to get that fiberglass to do what I want it to do while it cures. With the fiberglass cured, I started in on removing these parts from their forms. It proved to be a pretty serious challenge. I was kind of chuckling while I was doing this. It kind of reminded me of a defective fiberglass piñata. It had really kind of latched onto these forms. Both of them did. And I guess it really shouldn't have been a surprise because there was a bit of a negative draft on both of these. So I guess it made sense that it really grabbed onto them. But I dismantled the kind of the wooden sections into two pieces and pulled the parts out individually out of each unit. And that gave me enough leverage to go ahead and release it completely. The next step is to add the layers of fiberglass cloth to the inside. And this is really where I get the strength for these pockets. And I can add a little more beef in some of the corners where I need, or I know it's going to see a little bit more abuse, and or fastening points to the car. So the first step is to paint on a layer of polyester resin to the inside of these things. Because I'm working from the inside, I'm going to be adhering these pieces of pre-cut fiberglass cloth to these inside surfaces. So in order to keep them in place until I can actually thoroughly soak them with the resin, you need to create that tacky surface, and it also helps significantly with bonding to that inside surface. So that's where I started, and then I proceeded building up layers of this cloth. These are some seriously ugly parts right now. In my head, I'm looking at these thinking, these better come out nice. But one of the challenges you have anytime you pull a fiberglass part from the outside of the mold is you start off with an ugly part, and you go into this knowing there's going to be a lot of exterior, a lot of additional fiberglass work to make them attractive, and especially if you're putting a paint on any parts of these, which I am. But there really is no way around it unless you wanted to build a fiberglass plug and then a mold from that plug, and I wasn't willing to go through all that for just these two simple parts. So this approach worked the best, and in the end, it was the right choice. Well, here's where I ended up after doing a little bit more sanding, and I put a light coat of primer on just to kind of give me serve as a guide to continue my sanding efforts. Let me explain real quickly what I'm doing with these pockets, and it might make a little more sense in terms of their shape. So this outer edge right here, you can see, is a lip, and so essentially this section here is recessed. This area here will be painted body color, same color as the door. This will be carpeted to match the floor. And I can't remember if I've mentioned this before, but this surface will take a tremendous amount of use getting in and out. There's really no way, well, of course there's a way, but chances are you're going to be bumping this just about every time you get in and out. Your foot kind of drags across it. There's not a lot of space there between your feet and the door, and these doors open. So I really needed something here that was going to be very, very durable. Carpet is by far the best approach. So I think though, between the carpet tying in with the floor of the car and this being painted to match the body, it's going to look pretty well integrated into these door panels. So I'm going to show you a quick clip next of what it looks like in the car. So this is roughly where it's going to live, right here. And you can see it kind of sits in there pretty nicely. Again, I'm envisioning this thing being the same color and this section being carpeted. So I think this is a good choice. It seems to follow the lines of the door pretty nicely. This radius right here is a rough approximation of the radius at the top of the door. So kind of looking down past this door to this section, I think just will make sense. I showed lots of sanding, and this is just this primer is just kind of a rough guide coat. But like I've done or am doing in other parts, I'm trying to get all the stuff that's going to be painted to the same point, and that's where I'm at here. So this is kind of first stab at seeing what it looks like after the rough sand, and now I'm going to sand this primer down, and then do a little more filling and a little more sand work. I'm not concerned about this surface here because it's getting covered in carpet. It's plenty flat enough as it sits now. So, pretty happy with these door pockets. I think it was a good decision to go with a hard door pocket as opposed to a fabric one. I kind of thought about that, but I like the way this looks. It adds a little more detail to the door. I think it also will ultimately be a little more functional. I'm envisioning things like sunglasses going in here, things that I might not want to get banged up. And I think it'll certainly protect things in that pocket a little bit better. So, back to the rest of the bodywork. Well, I'm getting ready to dive into putting these door latches in. They just showed up. They were one of the last few things on my backorder list, so they're here now, and I can kind of get these in place before I do all my final fitment on the door. I wanted the latches in place, obviously, that makes sense. Two things. These latches do not match the ones in the owner's manual or the build manual. So when you do get these, you have to go online, and all I did was Google Factory 5 Roadster door latch installation instructions, and kind of the very first thing that came up were these instructions, and I printed them out. So that's one thing. The other thing is make sure you have a lot of paper in your printer and plenty of ink, because it's 31 pages long and there's a lot of print. So I have not looked at these yet. I am surprised it's going to take 31 pages to get these installed, but who knows, maybe it will. There are a lot of parts. So that's my project for this morning, is getting these door latches installed. It turns out you really don't need all 31 pages. It's a bit redundant. But what you're going to see here for the next minute or so is me assembling these at super speed. They're really pretty straightforward. There's a lot of parts, but there's not going to be any tutorial I'm going to be able to give you here that's going to help you speed up this process. You're just going to have to look at the manual and kind of go through it. But I guess rest assured that they go together quite nicely. And these are the latest versions, I guess, the ones that just came out. So I believe they're a little different than the ones that were even shipping a few months ago, if I'm not mistaken. But no, they go together great, and I think the next step you'll see me putting them in the car fully assembled. Okay, let's have a quick chat about bodywork. This is a stage I'm in right now, and I'm a complete novice. I really don't know what I'm doing here, so I want to strongly kind of point that out. Do not look at what I'm doing as a method for any type of guide for anybody that wants to be doing this in the future. What I am doing here, though, is kind of fumbling my way and learning my way through it. So that's what you're going to be watching over the next video or so. I will tell you real quickly how I started. Is I first wiped the car down with a strong degreaser and dewaxer. I didn't want to push wax all into the finish while I was grinding this away. After I did that, I took an orbital sander and just knocked the tops down of all those mold seams. I got to say, my body was in great shape. Yeah, there's a joke there. But the fiberglass body's in great shape. They really did a good job when this came out of the mold. Not too many of the seams were that proud. So once that was done, now I'm firmly into the blocking, and I'm giving the whole car a block. And I want to kind of use this as an opportunity to practice my practice my technique, for one, and also I want to make sure I'm starting with a unified scuff over the entire car. So I'm going to wind up this video with this. Stay tuned for a lot more body work, and keep the comments coming. Thank you. Oh, now you know I'm getting serious in body work. I've got one of these things. It should make life a lot easier.